Okay, welcome to Daniel. We're delving into chapter 3. We finished off 1 and 2, and we highlighted in some of the items we're going to learn in these coming weeks colloquial phrases, things that we use in our, or used to use in our everyday life. And one of them was the fourth man in the fire. This is a phrase that we used to talk about when we were in a tough spot and somehow got out of it. We would say something like, wow, if it wasn't for the fourth man in the fire, I'd have been in a lot of trouble. And that reference comes from today's story in chapter 3. So we're going to focus on that. A brief summary of chapter 3. Nebuchadnezzar has his head filled with the concept that he is the head of gold in his dream. And it goes to his head because he decides, you know what? I'm pretty awesome. I'm going to go ahead and build a obelisk size statue. This is going to be a golden image of myself. And in fact, it's going to be so awesome that I'm going to command people to worship it. And that'll be a way of ensuring that there is loyalty. And in fact, if they don't worship it, they're doing so under threat of death. And our three intrepid heroes, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, refuse the idolatry and they choose obedience to God. What's interesting as we read this chapter is where's Daniel? But
Yeah.
we'll catch up on that as we continue. So they do affirm God's power to deliver, even when they aren't really sure that that's going to be the outcome. You'll see when they pray, they kind of say, "Hey, if it's your will, but we still know even if this, punishment does strike us, we know it's your will." So it's a very interesting perspective they're going to have. What we learn, of course, no spoiler, but God does preserve them in this fiery furnace. And we see this pre incarnate Christ like figure, perhaps, is how it's interpreted, as this fourth man in the fire. Finally, the king is going to witness this fantastic power, powerful enough to destroy his own guards that are stoking the fire, but not powerful enough to even harm the men or what they're wearing with the flames. So that's the summary of chapter 3. We look at the first 7 chapters, this massive golden image, some 90 feet tall, as we'll see from the translations. And it is reason for him to summon all the officials across the empire and command them to bow. It is mandated, it is a test of loyalty. We see this echoed in Revelation, or we will see this echoed in Revelation years and years later, where this vision that John has that one day there'll be a loyalty test for the Antichrist that will be able to witness. This threat of death through the furnace enforces the command to pray, to bow. So the Chaldeans, these are again the astrologers or astronomers, they report to the three, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. They turn them in. So they're a little bit jealous. If you remember, these three were appointed head of the Chaldeans, and you could see these bureaucrats deciding who are these guys? They aren't even, from Babylon. They're outsiders, and here they're, put in position ahead of us. Who's going to stand for that? Not me. So they rat on them and they turn them in for not being willing to worship this image. And they, of course, say it's not us. We're not doing this for us, King. We're doing this because they're refusing to recognize your authority. So this creates a tremendous conflict, and their faithfulness becomes visible when its conformity is expected. Then we have confessions in verses 13 to 18. The king gives them a final chance. He likes these guys, and he gives them this kind of, hey, I know you weren't bowing outside, but I'm going to give you a chance now. And they don't. So now he's furious, and he has to make an example of them. So he decides that he's going to, uh, put them into this fiery furnace. This fiery furnace is such that he commands it to be heated 7 times its normal. And if you think about it, this is the king being angry. How dare you? I'm gonna hurt you worse. I'm gonna cause it to be, hotter than usual. And if you think about it, the hotter you make it, the quicker they're gonna die. He's actually being more merciful. But that's what happens with rage in our lives is we don't think straight. So he ends up creating a circumstance where the people he's trying to hurt more, he'll end up hurting less. But in any event, the three men go into the fire. They look, the guards that put him in are consumed by this blaze. You can, if you ever saw a backdraft, you know, when you open that door, boom, the oxygen rushes in, flames jump out. So the guards are killed. They shove the three men inside, and what they see is this divine presence that scholars tell us was perhaps a image of Jesus before, and this is some 600 years before his birth. Um, it does publicly overturn the king's display of power, and there, we see parallels in this story again to Revelation. The Jews are given a test like they're in the tribulation. Christ comes and rescues them. And when we say, hey, what happened to Daniel? Well, Daniel plays the church. He's not there for the tribulation, he's not involved in the flames. So that's one interpretation of our story. And I added some video because Paul was shaming me into saying that the video was not interactive. So there's your video. Finally, chapters 26 or verses 26 to 30, the men emerge unharmed. Nebuchadnezzar ends up blessing them, and they are promoted even further up the chain than they were before. And it shows that God will exalt those who remain loyal to them. So that's what we have to cover tonight. Let me hit stop and stop recording.